Okay, how we doing, folks? Today is Saturday, November 26, 2016. Rich Van Tassel with you, giving you our game previews of Week 12 now of the NFL season. We are, of course, recording for Get Live Radio as well. The first game up, the Tennessee Titans at 5-6, 2-3 on the road, travel to Chicago to play the Bears, who are 2-8, 2-2 at home. Injuries for the visiting Titans. Philip Supernaw, tight end, is out. Damian Stafford, safety, questionable. For the Chicago Bears, Zach Miller, the tight end, is on injury reserve. Jay Cutler, the quarterback, doubtful. Leonard Floyd, linebacker, is out. Josh Sitton, guard, doubtful. And Eddie Royal, wide receiver, is questionable. Tennessee really needs this game. Tennessee, I believe it's at about every total between 1 through 5 now. They have 5 wins, but every step of the way, they've been 500, meaning 1-1, 2-2, 3-3, 4-4, 5-5. Thus, there may have been a game in between there that they weren't, but I'm pretty sure at every number from 1 to 5, they've been at the 500 mark and have yet to been able to get above that mark. They lost last week at 5-5 to the Indianapolis Colts, so they are now 5-6. Clearly, this is a huge game for them to keep pace in that division race against the Houston Texans. The wild card is almost assuredly out of reach for them at this point. Those stranger things have happened. For the Chicago Bears, been a down year. They don't have Zach Miller tomorrow, and Jay Cutler likely not going to be able to go. Leonard Floyd, their top overall pick, is going to be out, so you have some serious injuries there. And Josh Sitton as well, so you're looking at all these injuries. And especially on the offensive end, without Zach Miller and without Jay Cutler, it's really going to be hard. Brian Hoyer has done a bulk of the work as well at quarterback, so they're not going to be losing much there in that regard. But still, it's going to be very tough for them. Marcus Mariota quietly putting together a good season. DeMarco Murray right at 1,000 yards. He's over 4.5 yards per carry. And, of course, Delanie Walker, the top receiver for the Tennessee Titans, a big favorite of Marcus Mariota. He loves the tight end. I don't see Tennessee really having that much of an issue in this game. Again, though, you have a banged-up team. There's still 6 games left to play, so there's no way Chicago is mailing it in right now. They may come out with something to prove. Tennessee really has to have this one. I think it'll be a little more difficult than people may expect, but Tennessee will be able to pull away with this one. I like it 27-17 over the Chicago Bears for the Tennessee Titans to get to 500 yet again. It's just when they get to 500, that's when the troubles come in. Jacksonville 2-8, 1-4 on the road, travels to Buffalo, who's 5-5, 2-2 at home. For the Jaguars, T.J. Yeldon, the running back, is questionable. The rest are out. Julius Thomas, tight end. Jared Odrick, defensive lineman. Chris Smith, defensive end. Dan Skuta, linebacker. For the Buffalo Bills, Robert Blanton, safety, is out. Corbin Bryant, defensive tackle, doubtful. Charles Clay, tight end. Cordy Glenn, offensive tackle. Sammy Watkins, wide receiver, are all questionable. So you look at Watkins coming back. Of course, we've said that's very big, especially going down the stretch for Buffalo. As good as they've been running the ball, Tyrod Taylor is efficient on the offensive end, but you look at his numbers, still under 2,000 yards, 10 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. If they want to have any hope, they're going to have to stretch the ball downfield. Robert Woods, their top receiver, doesn't even have 1,000 yards yet, and we're more than, or doesn't even have 500 yards yet, that is, and we're more than halfway through the season. So that's something that would really help the Buffalo Bills going forward. Jacksonville, as we've discussed ad nauseum, been a disappointing year for them. The running game has really struggled. Chris Ivory, of course, not even 350 yards with 10 games in. Now, he's missed a few games, so that clearly lowers the numbers just a bit, but he doesn't have 4 yards per carry. Yeldon, who's questionable, has not performed since coming into the league. And, of course, it's forced Blake Bortles to just throw the crap out of the ball, for lack of a better term. And 13 interceptions. He's got a lot of yards, but it's really been an issue for the Jacksonville Jaguars, and it's led to the 2-8 record again. Very disappointing season. Buffalo really has to have this at home against a poor team. They're only 500 at home, but they're 500 on the road as well, and 500 overall. But if they want to keep pace in that wild card, which is going to be very tough as is, they have to get this one, get above 500. They can really only lose at most 7 games, and even 6 games, if they lose that, would probably be too much for them to get in. But you're looking at them winning out to avoid 6 losses, so it would have to start today. I still think they can get 1 more loss, or possibly even 2, and get in. But they can't lose to a poor Jacksonville Jaguars team. I think they know that. Whether or not Sammy Watkins goes, Buffalo will be able to run the ball in this one. and they don't need their full complement of weapons to be able to beat a poor Jacksonville Jaguars team. I like this one 28-14 over the Jaguars, and they probably get some turnovers, Buffalo that is, with Stephon Gilmore on the back end as well as Ronald Darby. I think they may have solved their turnover difficulties last week. The Cincinnati Bengals, 3-6-1, 1-4 on the road, travel to Baltimore to play the Ravens, 5-5, 3-2 at home. Injuries for the visiting Bengals: William Jackson III, cornerback, injury reserve. Sean Williams, safety, doubtful. Darren Smith, safety, questionable. Cedric Pierman, running back, is on injury reserve. C.J. Uzomah, tight end, is doubtful. For the Baltimore Ravens, Marshall Yanda, guard, questionable. Crockett Gilmore, tight end. Jimmy Smith, cornerback, doubtful. Elvis Dumervil, linebacker, questionable. Lorenzo Taliaferro, running back, doubtful. And of course, for Cincinnati, A.J. Green is not playing in this game. He's likely done for the season. Cincinnati, this is really their last hope. I don't think they can win the division anyway. The wild card's out of reach. Again, you look at it, that tie is killing them. Right now, they're, 1.5 back, I suppose it would be, considering they have that tie. They have 3 wins to Baltimore's 5. They get this one, they give themselves a shot. They would have the equal amount of losses as the Baltimore Ravens. But remember, Pittsburgh also won, so they would be chasing them in that regard. Cincinnati, I really don't think can lose again. If they want to make it, they could. They got 6 left. They go 5-1. That would put them at 8-7-1. It's possible in that division that could win. But at this point, they're really in do or die mode. Dire straits, money for nothing, whatever you want to say it is. They have to come up with this one, and I don't think they'll be able to. Baltimore has been up and down all season long. You look at Joe Flacco's numbers, 10 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. He's really not putting together that much of a good season. The running game has been up and down. Terrence West, over 500 yards through 10 games, not great. He's not even averaging 4 yards per carry. He's just shy of that. You could probably round it up to 4 yards per carry, but exactly it's not. He has 140 carries, 552 yards. You would need 560 to be at 4 yards per carry. So he's right there. I'm sure the number would be rounded up, but he doesn't technically have it. But it's just been inconsistent. That's why Baltimore's 5-5. At home, however, I think Cincinnati, especially without A.J. Green, that will minimize the injury factor to Jimmy Smith for the Ravens at cornerback. It's not going to be that big of an issue. They'll establish the run. They'll do what they need to do. Flacco will be able to make some plays downfield, and they come away with the victory. I like it 24-20, Baltimore over the Cincinnati Bengals. The Arizona Cardinals, 4-5-1, 1-3 on the road, traveling to Atlanta, who's 6-4, 2-2 at home. Atlanta, again, after a big start, is starting to stumble a bit. We'll get into that once we do the injury report. For the Cardinals, all listed as questionable. Ed Stinson, defensive tackle. Christian Bryant, defensive back. Britton Golden, wide receiver. Michael Floyd, wide receiver. Tyrann Mathieu, safety. For the Falcons, Matt Bosher, punter, and Desmond Trufant, the cornerback, are questionable. Arizona's been a very disappointing team thus far this year. They, had a lot of talk coming into the season. They thought this was going to be the team. They had Super Bowl aspirations. They've just not been able to get it together. Inconsistencies all the way around, I'd say. A lot of it is just a lack of focus. I'm not even really sure where you go with the Arizona Cardinals. Their defense has not lived up to expectations, clearly. Their offense, which is supposed to be potent, has not been able to run the ball all the time. They're oftentimes falling behind in games, forcing Carson Palmer to throw it. So as good of a year as David Johnson is having running the ball, I think he's been even minimized to some extent because they're falling behind in games. They, of course, had that tie, a lot of missed field goals. It's just been a messy year for the Arizona Cardinals. As far as the Falcons, they got off to the 4-1 start. Remember, last year they were 5-0. Since then, they've been 2-3. So they're not completely falling, but they've allowed Tampa Bay to get back into the division race. And even Carolina is only 2 games out, and they're in last place. So they've certainly opened the door in this one just a bit. And we'll have to keep an eye on that moving down the stretch. They had a chance to really coast. They had aspirations of being the top overall seed. Now they're just worried about holding on to that division. Yeah, you look at David Johnson. I mean, he's putting up a ton of yards this year, but he only has 197 carries. So that's one of the things I'm looking at with the Arizona Cardinals. I'm not saying David Johnson is not having a good year when I talk about the running struggles. What I mean is they're not able to really put it together all the time and be able to utilize him the most. Devontae Freeman, on the other hand, has 145 carries for the Atlanta Falcons, and they really split their carries between him and who's that other guy on the team? And I can't even remember what Tevin Coleman is the other guy. Sorry, my mistake. So you look at it that way, that's where David Johnson really comes across and all that. Got to be established more. LaShawn McCoy, on the other end, for Buffalo, has 138 carries. He's been missing games. They split runs all the time. So David Johnson is the one carrying the bulk of the rushing attempts. And while he has a ton of yards, it's just not coming together in that regard. 10 touchdowns. You look at Carson Palmer, 13 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. They're throwing them all the time. Matt Ryan, on the other hand, 24 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Julio Jones having a monster year. Tyrann Mathieu, injury questions in the secondary. Are they going to be able to hang on? Patrick Peterson will be on Julio Jones. Patrick Peterson is he's a big-time cornerback, but he's also a big guy, so that'll be an interesting matchup to watch. Man, this is a really interesting game. I think Arizona's going to go on the road and win it, to be completely honest with you. I think they're desperate. I don't know if they can make the playoffs, to be honest, but they have to have this one. Certainly, if they get it, they open up a wild card scenario with it, where if Atlanta doesn't win the division, they would have the tiebreaker. But I don't think the wild card is going to be coming out of the NFC South or NFC West to begin with. It's probably, both of them will probably come out of the NFC East. But if it doesn't come out of the NFC East, it's coming out of the NFC North. And I would expect that even if Arizona wins this game and Atlanta doesn't go as a division champion, then neither one of the teams will make the playoffs. But that's another story for another day. Arizona has to get this one, and I just think they're going to be able to do so. I think Julio Jones is going to be minimized by Patrick Peterson. Arizona, last stand time, they come up with a win in a relatively high-scoring game. I like it 27-24 over the Atlanta Falcons on the road for the Arizona Cardinals. Alright, so we'll be back in a little bit, give you part 2 of the game previews for now week 12 of the NFL season. Be sure to stay tuned for that. Thank you very much.